The views and opinions expressed on the Veterans in Politics show and podcast are those of the guests and hosts and do not necessarily reflect those of Vegas All Night Radio, its affiliates, or its parent company.
This is Steve Sanson, Jim Jonas with Veterans in Politics. It is Christmas Eve, Jim.
Yeah.
Christmas Eve. And where are we? Right here in the studio.
Exactly where we
Because we're hard chargers.
That's
we're movers.
We are.
We're shakers. It doesn't matter what day of the week it is. We get the job done.
Exactly right.
That's right. Before we go into a guest, I just wanted to say, actually, we got our rants to do as well. Before I forget, I want to say happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, Feliz Navidad. I forget anything because, you know, we got to be politically correct. We got to get the whole nation. I miss anybody?
No, I'm not. I'm not sure you missed anyone.
All right, good.
I'm not so sure about the politically correct part.
Oh, yeah? Or should I say religiously correct?
Yeah, that sounds better.
Okay. That's because we have Julian Austin. He's a Canadian country music artist. He's going to be talking with us. And then we have Ken Pollock, who's the Clark County District Court Judge, Family Division. He's going to be talking with us.
No.
Yeah. But you have any rants, Jim?
No, actually, not necessarily a rant. I just want to say as someone who is a member of Veterans in Politics, not an actual veteran himself, I just want to, for all the listeners out there, I just really want to thank all of the veterans, active service members. Steve, I don't think we've talked about this that much, but I'm not trying to get too sentimental here, but, this is a tough time of year for me. I lost my dad right after Christmas, the day after Christmas in 2006. He was on life support, and I had to give the doctors the orders to remove that life support, and he passed away roughly about 6 hours after I signed off on that. And so this time of year is kind of tough for me, and my mom now has been diagnosed with cancer, and she's going through treatments to deal with her cervical cancer. That seems to be going rather well, so that's a good thing. But, I mean, the main reason why I bring this up is not so much to say that, it's a tough time of year for me necessarily, but what I would like to say just on behalf of Veterans of Politics for my involvement in it anyway, is that a lot of individuals do not understand that, if it was not for the sacrifice that these men and women are willing to do, okay, we wouldn't have the treatment facilities that my mom is allowed to attend. And my dad did. Unfortunately, it didn't save his life, but you know what? It is what it is. It extended his life for 3 or 4 more years. And if it wasn't for the men and women that are that sign up and are willing to serve to protect this country and allow that medical technology to exist, and for them to be able to attend these medical facilities, you know what? I wouldn't have had the opportunity to have my dad around a couple more years, and then, you know what? Hopefully my mom will be around a lot longer too. So I just want to take this moment to just really thank the men and women of the armed services for all the sacrifice they've bestowed upon us, my family in particular. And sometimes people can't, they don't understand that, but I do. And I appreciate them. And the fact that they're out there in all these different countries all over the world, just protecting us and allowing my family and I really honestly believe that it's the military in a large part that allowed me to spend a couple more years with my dad, and hopefully many more years with my mom. And I can't thank them enough. And I can't thank you enough, Steve, for the opportunity that you bestowed upon me. I could tell you right now, I would not be co-hosting the show with you. I wouldn't have the opportunity to be in studio with Ken Pollock. Judge Pollock is someone who I have a lot of respect for. I wouldn't be able to do that if it wasn't for just all the men and women of the armed services. And I just thank you guys so much for everything you do. And it's a privilege every Saturday to host this show with you, Steve. And I don't know how much more I can say than that, but Steve, I think the world of you. I think the world of Heidi, Faith, that has become, she's such a beautiful young girl, and I just want to wish you a Merry Christmas and Ken a Merry Christmas, and it's just a pleasure to be on the show today, Steve.
Well, Jim, you kind of caught me off guard. I want to say condolence to your loss of your dad, because I know you talked about him some time ago, and I know about your mom, and I want to wish her the very best, Jim. And one of the reasons why I have you on the show as co-host is because I respect your ideas. I know where your heart is, and I know that you have a lot of loyalty, and that combination is very rare in Las Vegas, especially loyalty. Very rare in Las Vegas, and I know that you have that, and it's an honor to do the show with you every Saturday as well. With that said, we at the Veterans in Politics would like to wish all the Iraqi and Afghanistan troops a Merry Christmas. And as you know, Iraqi has, the troops that was in Iraq has withdrawn. So the troops that are coming back from Iraq is in Kuwait, and I guess they're going to be coming back stateside. If not going to Afghanistan, I hope that's not where they're going to go. But the troops that are already in Afghanistan, wish you safe journeys, and hope you return back to the United States in one piece, mentally and physically as well. And I just hope that Christmas means a lot to a lot of people. And sometimes I get a little bit offended when I feel that I can't say Merry Christmas. I have to say Happy Holidays. And I feel that that's kind of intrusive upon me, because December 25th started out as Merry Christmas. It never started out as Happy Holidays. Right. It never started out as Happy Holidays, but over the years we changed it because we don't want to offend anybody. And although we change it not to offend people by saying Happy Holidays, but some of the people that want to hear Merry Christmas get offended because they feel that they can't say Merry Christmas, and they feel that they're being offended upon as well. So, Christmas is what it is. It's supposed to be a joyous occasion that everybody get together and forgive each other and forget their differences. So I hope that tomorrow that everybody could put away their differences, and maybe for the new year, one of the resolutions, if anybody believe in New Year's resolutions, is to I guess forgive each other for what they did, but I guess you can never forget, right? And
Right.
Speaking of never forgetting, I in my mind of minds, I don't think I could ever forget the officer that shot Stanley Gibson. And as you know, I went to his funeral, and I think that that officer should be tried amongst his peers, and dealt with just like we would deal with anybody that shoots anybody in cold blood, which, in my opinion and the opinion of many others, that's exactly what took place. And you know, when you post these things on Facebook and you talk about this particular last police shooting, there's some arrogant people out there that say, well, he should have listened to the cops. Okay, they're right. He should have listened to the cops. But does that mean if he doesn't listen to the cops have a right to shoot him? If he doesn't listen to the cops could kill him. The cops could be judge, the cops could be jury, and the cops could be executioner. Hey, he didn't listen to me, so now I'm going to shoot him. Is that how it's supposed to go?
No, it's not. It's not how it's supposed to go, Stephen. I mean, I'm not trying to interject here, but I think those individuals that make that statement are talking more of if there was an imminent threat towards that officer. But if you watch the video, the YouTube video, there wasn't an imminent threat to that officer. It wasn't like Stanley was pointing a gun at that officer.
Right.
Now if Stanley was pointing a gun at that officer, then you could almost say, yeah, you know what? I felt my life was in danger at this time.
Absolutely.
But that wasn't the case.
And there was another point that people were posting on Facebook. They're saying, well, he had a 4,000-pound weapon, meaning his car. But I don't think people...
It wasn't aimed at the officer, though.
And people failed to realize that this 4,000-pound weapon, his white Cadillac, was pinned.
Exactly.
Pinned from the rear, from the side, and from the front by police cruisers. And there wasn't any officers in those cruisers that pinned his 4,000-pound vehicle. So these people that post these things, I don't think they don't know exactly what they're really posting. They don't have the facts, and they're telling me that I don't have the facts. But folks, a lot of the facts that I have are from Metropolitan Police officers themselves. And although, yes, I do listen to the news, and yes, I do take a little bits and pieces from the news, but 85% of what I post is out of the mouth of a cop. So take that to the bank. Okay?
Yeah, we just actually, and
we're with a highway patrol officer just an hour before we got on this show. So if you guys don't think that we know what we're talking about, you're sadly mistaken, because the veterans in politics is not just veterans that doing a white collar job or a blue collar job. We also have veterans that are actually wear a badge, drive a cruiser. So the veterans in politics is not against the Metropolitan Police Department, folks. The veterans in politics is against poor leadership and cops that go around thinking that they're a judge, jury, and executor. And that's why we have the judicial branch.
Exactly. And I'm gonna just take it one step further. It's not that. It is a lack of training. And I'm not gonna name names, but someone who's ran for sheriff before, we all know her name, has said to me and you both, it's a lack of training.
Absolutely. It is a lack of training. And especially when you have several officers that have their gun pointed at a suspect and they're all giving commands.
Right.
And I said this last week. Who do you listen to? And you know what? It should be the first officer in the scene should take control and give verbal commands. I don't care. But that I don't care what your rank is when you show up afterwards. It should be the first officer in the scene that takes control and give verbal commands to the suspect. Not everybody else. Everybody else thinking about their promotion. That's what I think it is. They want to make a name for themselves. But anyways, let's take a commercial break. We're going to play our Veterans Ball commercial, and then we're going to go right to Julian Austin, who's on the line from Canada. This is Steve Sanson, Jim Jonas. Folks, don't go away.
All right, great. Then it's a date. As Miss Nevada, my schedule can be really busy at times, but there is one activity I had to put on my calendar, and that's the Veterans Valentine Ball and Gala. February 11th is your chance to help local veterans meet with the state's dignitaries and feel the love for Valentine's Day. So bring your sweetheart down to the Plaza Hotel on February 11th at 5:30 p.m. for a dinner, dance, and silent auction. Visit veteransinpolitics.com by December 30th to purchase your tickets. I've got my date. Do you?
Well, we're back. This is Steve Sanson, Jim Jones for Veterans and Pollock. We have Julian Austin, who's a Canadian country music artist. Julian.
Hey, Steve. Hey, Jim.
How's it going, Julian?
It's going great, man. It's going great. Guys, I want to say, I was just listening to what you guys were saying, and Jim, you know, our prayers and our best wishes for your mom, man. Hope that she heals, you know, from cancer. I got a mom dealing with it right now, too, and it sucks. And I'll be praying for your mom, and I hope that she heals well.
Well, thank you very much for that, Julian.
And you know, I mean, you know, and also you losing your dad, especially around this time of the year. It's got to be hard every time when Christmas comes back around. You know, I mean, to lose our loved ones is one thing, but you know, like you said, I can see why Christmas would be a difficult time of year for you. Again, I'm sorry to hear that. You also said about the men and women who wear the uniform in the name of freedom. For all of us, and you know, to all the men and women of the U.S. forces, God love you. Thank you for everything you do, and to all the men and women that wear the uniform in the name of, again, peace and freedom in the free world. Thank you, and God bless. And I hope everybody gets home that's coming home gets home safe. And yeah. That was good.
Julian, Steve, where are you calling from, by the way?
I'm calling from Manitoba, which is pretty much central Canada. I'm just right on the border of North Dakota.
Could you give us tell us a little bit about yourself?
I was born and raised in the Maritimes. It's a heavily Scottish, Irish descendant kind of place. Great place to grow up. Wonderful people. A lot of music in that region of Canada. Yeah, I spent a great number of my years in my youth growing up there, and then I moved across Canada later on into Calgary, Alberta. Yeah, and then, of course, I met my wife there, and we moved to Manitoba, you know, a number of years later. Her whole family's from and all that, so this is where I'm kind of here now, and yeah, you know, music is my bag, man. I love it. I thank the good Lord for the talent that He's given me to be able to, you know, to do what I do and make a living out of it, you know, and I'm very thankful for every day I get up. You know, I get a chance to do what I love to do and, again, you know, make a living at it.
So, Julian, let me ask you a question. You're from Canada, and I was born, not necessarily raised, in South Dakota, and I know a little bit about country music. How does someone from Canada become a country music singer? I want you to talk a little more about that.
Well, I cut my teeth, Jim. I mean, I cut my teeth originally in rock, right? I mean, my first song I ever learned was "Fly by Night" by Rush. You know, I mean, I was a metalhead through the '80s, and you know, but the late '70s. I mean, I was into Gary Wright and the Eagles and the Doobies, and I mean, just a whole bunch of great bands, right? And then, you know, I got into the '80s scene, and where I'm still stuck, I might say today. But you know, I was a rocker first, and I'm still a rocker at heart. And it's just later on, you know, I fell in love with the new country, they were calling it at the time, that was coming out of Nashville, was coming out of the U.S. And it was, you know, artists like you know, Tracy Lawrence, Dwight Yoakam, Mark Chestnut, Clint Black, Alan Jackson, all these, you know, great artists that were coming out under the new country flag. And So I really, a friend of mine, played me a couple songs. And he said, "Man, you got to check out this new country, man. It's not like the old stuff, Not that there's anything wrong with the old stuff. I mean, I like Cash and I like Haggard and all that. But it was that changed my whole direction of where I was going. And I just, it's been good to me. I can't say enough about the country music fans. They're just great. Yeah.
Julian, what made you get into entertaining for the troops? How did you get into that?
I was asked a number of years ago to go into Bosnia when there were still, NATO troops in there, or S4 troops at the time. And so I was asked in 2004 to go over, and I said, yeah, I'll go over for sure. So I canceled a bunch of shows here in Canada, and then I went over with several other Canadian artists. And at that time, our shows are called CanCon show tours. You guys have the USO show tours, right?
Right.
And it's really cool. So we went over to Bosnia. This was my first trip anyways, and we were doing shows there on the Canadian basis. But then we got to Sarajevo, and that was a huge American base over there. And all the S4 troops or NATO soldiers that were serving were all stationed there. So it was really cool. We had a chance to not only play for the Canadian troops that were there at the time, but we had a chance to play for the American troops, the British troops, Germans, Dutch, everybody. And then from there, later on in that year, I made my first out of 3 trips into Afghanistan, and starting off in Kabul. And we were at Camp Julian, which was a Canadian camp just outside of Kabul. And there was stationed with us was also U.S. Marines and some men and women of the U.S. Army. So that was really cool. And then, of course, we went into Kandahar and then the PRT the next couple of years, where, of course, Kandahar, as you know, is a American military base with many of the NATO forces stationed there, right? So we had a chance to go over again for the CanCon show tours and play for the Canadians, the American, the British, the Dutch, all the different NATO men and women that were serving. So it was great. So I got to not only perform for the men and women of the Canadian forces, we got a chance to perform for everybody that was serving, in the free world forces, as I like to call it.
Well, you know that we have your latest song, and we're gonna play it at the end of your segment, just to let you know.
Thank you.
So when we say goodbye, Austin, I don't want you to hang up the phone. I want you to listen to your song being played. And
thanks, Steve. You know why? I've written songs about. I find our patriotism in our country, for the lack of a better word, it's getting better. It sucks. And I want to see it come around a lot more than what it is, and it has. And I've written several songs, in tribute of our Canadian heroes. But there was also, I was watching an episode a number of years ago, and I seen these 2 twin brothers that were U.S. Marines, and that really inspired me to write this song. And I hope I did it justice, and I hope I did certainly the men and women of the U.S. Marines justice when they hear this song. And it was an honor to write the song, and it's an honor for you to have me on this show, on your show, you and Jim, and that's just it's an honor for you to play that song. Are you
still coming out for the to perform at the Veterans Valentine's Day Ball, February 11th?
Yeah, you want to hear something funny? When I talked to you, I wasn't sure if I could do it because I was waiting for my new waiver, right?
Right.
And so one of the best Christmas gifts I could get this year was the good folks of the U.S. Immigration Customs blessed me with my 3rd waiver, and it's a 5-year waiver.
Well, you know what? You know what? I hate to be a smart ass, but all you gotta do is go through the crossover Mexico, and you come right on in without a waiver.
Yeah, I guess I could, but I have to get down there too now. Eh? They take one look at me and they go, "No, something funny about that guy." No, you know what? And I would never want to get stuck in a Mexican prison, man. No way.
Oh, you mean they arrest you for being there illegally?
What's that?
Are you kidding me? Because according to all of them over here, that they're saying that that they should be able to come here illegally. So you mean in Mexico they arrest you for being there illegally?
They might.
Isn't that hypocritical?
I don't know. I love going there. But I just watched an episode, Locked Up Abroad there, and I said, "Geez, man, I wouldn't want to get locked up in a Mexican prison. No, I wouldn't want to go back to prison. Put it that way. So but that, especially those ones."
Did you say going back to prison, Julian?
Well, no, I did time when I was younger. I mean, I was in trouble with the law when I was younger. And
you know, I have a judge in studio here.
Yeah, I was going to say, Judge Pollock. You know, it's an honor to be on the show with you. Is too. Listen. I've grown up and I've learned the errors of my ways, and every day I get up and I thank the good Lord for another day above ground. Is a day I try to put some more karma in the bank and do good.
I think Judge Pollock wants to ask you if you're a felon because he doesn't want to be in the same studio with us.
No, I'm a fellow.
A fellow.
Actually, I'm a fella. I'm a good fella. Yeah. No more felon for this guy. I'm just a Canadian country. I'm just a country singer, man. And yeah, and I owe a lot. I owe a huge amount to the American. As we all, I mean, we all inspire to idolize our heroes of the American music scene, the British music scene, you know, and it's really great that, you know, some great music is always coming out of the U.S. and it's influenced my sound, because I've had people from the U.S. that know me think I'm American or my sound is American, you know, and the Canadians say the same thing, you know. And it's great because that's the influence that I had in country music and also my rock stuff too.
Well, Julian, do you have anything more for us before we put your music on?
You know, Steve, I just want to say, you know, thank you for your years of service to your country, to all of us in the free world, your fellow brothers and sisters in arms, to all the serving men and women in the world right now that are serving for the better of humanity and fighting evil and terrorism. God bless each and every one of you, and know that we care about you, and we're very thankful and appreciative for everything that you do and have done for all of us and to our veterans, our beloved veterans everywhere. I mean, what can you say? My father was a Second World War combat medic. You know, I miss him dearly. I love our veterans. I love those who serve, and Merry Christmas to everyone, and thank you for all you do.
Well, thank you, Julian. Don't hang up. That's Julian Austin, who's a Canadian country music artist who's going to be singing or performing for us at the Veterans Valentine's Day Ball on February 11th at the Plaza. So if you haven't received your tickets or sponsored a table, do so at veteransinpolitics.com. Without further ado, we're going to play Julian Austin's song, and then we're going to come right into Kenneth Pollock, who's a Clark County District Court judge. This is Steve Sanson, Jim Jonas with Veterans in Politics. Don't go away, folks. Enjoy the song.
Billy and Tommy were brothers. They loved playing soldiers when they were kids. They promised each other that when they got older, they'd serve their country like their dad did. Then on that day when they both turned 18, they both signed up for the U.S. Marines. 2 years later, they got their orders. They were shipping out for overseas. Their dad was proud as hell, but their mama cried. She said, "Don't go being heroes. Don't you dare make your mama cry. I want you both back home alive. You'll always be my little boys, my little guys. Please don't go being heroes. Please don't go being heroes." Tommy got sent over to Iraq, Billy to Afghanistan. Night and day, day and night, 247. They were fighting Al-Qaeda and the Taliban. Billy's striker one day got hit bad by a roadside bomber outside of Arghandab. No one got wounded and nobody died because of Billy's fast thinking that August night. Tommy was proud as hell when he got the call. Staff sergeant said, "Sir, your brother is a hero. Because of him, we're still alive. You should have seen how he risked his life. It's because of him that we're here today. What else can I say? Sir, your brother is a hero." second meth. We're under attack in Remedy Allen Bar. The losses were heavy for them boys on that day. Tommy took shrapnel to his back and both of his legs. But he climbed up on his Humvee and man that 50 cal, sending 55 of those Hodgies straight to hell. And that fatal Taliban motor round come in, but not before Tommy got to save all his friends. Billy just cried on the phone when he got the call. Lance Corporal said, "Sir, your brother was a hero. He sacrificed his own life to save his brother's lives. That's why I'm talking to you today. Sir, he fought hard and brave. He loved his country and his family was proud to be a Marine. Sir, your brother died a hero. Corporal Annie was a hero. Billy and Tommy were brothers."
Wow, Jim, what do you think about that song by Julian Austin?
Well, I think it was a great song, and it was nice to actually get to talk with Julian. I think he's a great guy.
Yeah, don't go be a hero. That means do what you need to do, but don't try to put your butt out there and get shot. I basically think that was a theme.
Yeah, exactly. Or don't say that.
Come back home to mama.
Well, I had a 4,000-pound weapon pointed at me when he really didn't.
Yeah. Come back home to mama. That's basically it. But you know what? We have Kenneth Pollock, who's the Clark County District Court Judge, Family Division, in studio. Ken, how you doing?
Doing great, Steve. Want to thank both you and Jim for the opportunity to visit with you and your listeners today. And if you'd allow me the privilege, I'd like to thank the men and women that serve in our armed forces and have previously served for what they've done for the country.
Well, thanks, Judge. And you know what? We appreciate you coming here on Christmas Eve of all days to come and sit in studio with me and Jim. And I'm not wearing any cologne this morning, so I might be smelling a little bad, so I hope you don't mind. I'm trying to get a joke in. Why is everybody looking at me like I'm crazy? Judge, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Steve, I'm currently a district court judge. I was elected in 2008. I serve in the Family Division, which basically deals with the cases for the families, whether it's termination of parental rights, divorce, child custody, child support, adoptions, name changes. Basically, the court that the majority of the community is going to be involved with, if they're involved with the court system at all.
So, Judge, why did you decide to want to run for that particular seat? Because that's, I mean, you're dealing with some pretty difficult situations there.
Well, the reason I ran for that seat, when I ran in 2008, I said there were some problems in the family court and I wanted to affect change. We're now 3 years into the changes, and I think the court is moving in the right direction, and it was the way to serve my community the best.
So what specifically, since you just spoke about how they needed to move in a different direction, what do you believe that you brought into the bench to help affect that change that you wanted to see when you ran in 2008?
Well, there have been some changes, both at the district court level and decisions that have come down from the Supreme Court. From my personal department, when I ran and I took office, my caseload was about 1,100 cases, active cases. As of yesterday, when I looked, I was down to 482. So we've been able to reduce the delay and get resolution for the families.
How do you, Judge? I know that there's no win. The only person that wins in family court are the attorneys, because you know they get paid. But if you're a plaintiff or a defendant or respondent or an applicant, so to speak, and especially dealing with a family court, there is no winners amongst them, especially when you're fighting for custody or visitation rights of children. How would you handle that when there's a domestic violence accusation within a particular case? How do you handle who gets the child or how many hours the child spends with one parent versus the other? How do you go about doing that?
Well, first thing you have to do is determine whether the domestic violence actually occurred. And that there's a presumption in the law that a perpetrator of domestic violence is not fit for primary or sole custody. I mean, and even joint custody is inappropriate when we have a domestic violence situation. So the first thing you have to determine is whether domestic violence occurred. There's lots of allegations out there. They're very serious. When it occurs, it's something that should never occur, but we also have to weed out the false allegations of domestic violence.
So what, let's say hypothetically you're dealing with a child custody issue, and domestic violence was just between the husband and wife, and neither party had touched the child at all. So there's no child abuse allegations there. Is that something you still weigh in because of the domestic violence between the two parties, but has nothing to do with the child itself?
Absolutely. Under NRS 125-480, that's one of the factors that we consider in determining child custody, and as well as there's that presumption that if you are a perpetrator of domestic violence, primary or joint custody is not in the child's best interest, and the perpetrator then has to bring forth sufficient evidence to overcome that presumption.
I was always told that Nevada is they more favor dads here in the state of Nevada. Is that true as far as child custody is concerned?
No, actually, the law in Nevada is that presumption starts with joint custody,
which is 50-50. How does that work? Explain joint custody to the listeners.
Well, actually, joint custody is defined by our Supreme Court in the case of Rivero v. Rivero, that each of the parties have at least 40% of the time, and nobody has more than 60% of the time.
Okay. So that means that the child lives with mom and dad, let's say Monday, Tuesday. Well, mom, let's say Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and dad Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Is that how it works?
Well, that's one method. There's lots of different methods. You can have week on, week off. You can have, there's a Dr. Lenkite, who's one of the psychologists that works with the court, developed a model where each parent has 2 days of the work week, and then the week, Friday, Saturday, Sunday alternates. There's unlimited ways to divide the time. It's whatever's best for that child.
So Judge Pollock, I mean, just that seems like a very complicated system. How, when you render a verdict, how does that go about being carried out as far as like Steve was talking about, 60% to the mother, 40% to the father? What people in the court system make sure that your ruling, in effect, would be carried out?
Well, I guess the first thing is we need to correct it's 60% to either party. It could be 60% to dad, 40% to mom, could be 60% to mom, 40% to dad, or anything in between, 50-50, 55-45, whatever the number is. As a judge, we have to rely on the parties to enforce it when someone isn't complying with the court order, to bring it back before us on a motion that we hold the party in contempt.
So what kind of formula goes into that? Because, well, here's the thing I'm trying to get at, and it's, for me personally, this is one of the main reasons why I would never want to be in your position, is because it just seems so unfortunate when two parties, a mother and a father, get into this dispute, and that it gets to a point where you're going to decide how many hours that a child can spend with the mother or the father. I just want for the listeners to get more of an understanding of how the court system actually figures out these parental guidelines and visitations.
Well, the first step is the step that we always hope that will work, is that the parents negotiate in good faith and do what's best for their child. They know their child, they love their child. We assume they want what's best for their child.
Right.
So when they're in the mediation process, they're actually at a fork in the road, and they have a choice. Either they can determine what's best for their child, or they can act like teenagers, come back before a judge who's going to act like the parent, or going to be their parent, and dictate what their life is going to be. As a judge, I don't want to run someone else's life. I don't want to be their parent.
Right.
But I have to protect the interests of the child.
Your Honor, could you explain how does child support work? I mean, because there's a lot of people who have different ideas on how child support works. Could you explain? Let's say I was making $1 million a year, okay, but I know in the child could live at $1,000 a month in child support. But if I was making $50,000 a year, it doesn't matter how much I'm making. Basically, is what I'm going to give to that child. Because if I'm making $1 million a year, I don't think the child needs $10,000 a month. I mean, what's a child going to get for $10,000 a month? But tell me, it doesn't matter what I make. Well, actually, determines what the child gets.
Well,
not what the child needs.
It's both needs and what you earn, but what you earn is our starting point. We've got 2 statutes, and actually I'll go into a couple of the formulas, but you've got NRS 125B 070 and 080, which sets forth the mathematical formula for child support, and it starts with the gross monthly income of the parents. In terms of which formula to use, we have one formula for when it's a primary custodial situation. We've got a second formula, which is when it's a joint situation. In the primary, we'll start with that one first because that tracks the statute. That for one minor child, your child support obligation is 18% of your gross monthly income. 2 children is 25%, 3 children is 29%, and it goes up from there per child. The legislature has also created a cap, a presumptive maximum. It's not a hard cap, but it's a presumptive maximum that is presumed to meet the needs of the children or child. We also have I think it's 9 or 10 deviation factors that the court can consider, such as child care costs, education, special needs, if you have an obligation to support anyone else and it's a legal obligation. So stepchild doesn't count, but another child would count. Transportation costs. There's a laundry list of things. And the catch-all, or the last one, is the relative income of the parties, which could be a deviation factor. So we go through, we do the math, we look at the cap, we look at the deviation factors, and our Supreme Court has said that we look at the deviation factors, especially when we're dealing with the cap, prior to applying the cap. So that if you're going to get an offset, say, for providing health insurance, and you're $300 above the cap and your health insurance contribution doesn't take you below where the cap was, the cap is still going to be applied. You're going to owe the same amount with or without that deviation.
So, Judge, what would you say to someone like me that just heard everything you said, and I think you got probably one of the most difficult jobs there is, and I think it's overcomplicated. So I want your honest feedback on this. I think it's overcomplicated by, we're breaking down statistics, we're looking at menial incomes, we're breaking all this stuff down, where for me personally it just comes down to, you know what, either it's a deadbeat mom or a deadbeat dad. Plain and simple. I think too much pressure is put on the court system in general, and I just think that, you know what, if you're a deadbeat dad, you should pay out the butt, and if you're a deadbeat mom, same thing.
Actually, we have thousands of parents that are actually paying for their children on a monthly basis. They're stepping up. They're doing what they're supposed to do.
Right.
The deadbeat title is a very small portion of the caseloads.
Yeah.
And the court has methods to motivate people to pay what they're required to pay.
Well, could you tell us some of those methods?
Well, the number one method is our contempt power. And if you are out earning money, not providing for your child, there's really no reason for you to be out on the street, and you could risk going to jail for that.
No reason for you to be out on the street.
I like that.
I mean, if you're not taking care of your child, that's a primary responsibility.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about alimony. How does alimony work? Because if a person is an able body that could go out and work, but haven't worked for X amount of time, because of whatever, because they're living off the husband or living off the wife. But if you're able-bodied and you could work, I don't see why you just don't. I mean, it's changed because the person's getting divorced now. Why can't you just change your lifestyle and go find yourself a job? So how does alimony actually work?
Well, now you're walking into a minefield because the Supreme Court has given us case law all over the board. But basically boils, and there's statutes that tell us what we're supposed to look at in terms of alimony. Some of the factors that we look at is how long the marriage lasts. Did a party lose something by entering into the marriage? We're trying to get them back as if this marriage didn't take them out of the workplace or whatever the factors are. So you're going to be looking at first whether they qualify for spousal support. Once you determine that they do qualify,
And how do you qualify?
like you go through the statutory factors. And it would take, if you thought the child support was confusing, alimony is far more confusing.
Right, I'm sure.
So first you're going to determine, is this even an alimony case, or as we call it, a spousal support case? Once you make the determination that it is, you have to determine how long the assistance is for. And there's actually two types of spousal support. There's what everyone normally thinks of as alimony. Then we have rehabilitative alimony, which is to bring someone back to where they were, to rehabilitate them, whether it's them going to school, whatever, to get them back into the workforce where they should be because they lost something by being part of this marriage.
Okay.
But the bottom line, once you go through all the factors, you need to look at the spouse that's going to be supported, their need. Do they have an actual need? So you look at their earning ability, whether you need to impute income because they're willfully underemployed, or are they actually earning what they're capable of, but because of being out of the workforce for a number of years, their income is now reduced, versus the paying spouse's ability to pay. Do they have an ability to help that other spouse?
So, Judge, I'm going to ask you a just real blunt question. With all the stuff that you've been through, okay, we're breaking down alimony and how we figure it out and child support and all that stuff, shouldn't just no one get married?
Well, that isn't good for society. We hope that people get married and they stay married.
If they didn't get married, they wouldn't need family court judges. So you want to take Judge Pollock out of a job?
That's a very good point, Steve. I should have figured you'd come up with that. But I mean, just in general, I think, my opinion is that we're just become too litigious. I mean, it's just like everybody's suing everybody, and we've just broken everything down so much. I'm not trying to take your job away, Judge, because we all need judges. But, I mean, when we start breaking down, I mean, it's just getting ridiculous.
You know what? I want to know if you give any merit to infidelity.
Under Nevada law, that is irrelevant.
I knew it. See?
Yeah.
See?
So you're all right, Steve. You're
Shut
good.
up, Jim. Are you familiar with the Soldier Sailors Act?
The Service Member Protection Act?
Right.
Yes.
Okay. And let me ask you a question, Judge. You have a defendant, a plaintiff actually, that comes before you, and they want to take the child out of the country. But this child, but the husband or the father is serving overseas somewhere. It could be anywhere. How do you ask certain questions to find out what does dad do if this was the case that's before you for the first time? How do you handle something like that?
Well, actually, there's a couple of things that we have to deal with. The Service Member Protection Act will determine whether I need to stay the action, whether we have to appoint counsel. So there's a large laundry list of issues under the Service Member Protection Act before I can even make a decision. But interesting, you should ask about child custody and service members, because the legislature in the last session passed AB 313, which provided new benefits for the service members.
Explain that. Explain that.
Okay, well, it's a pretty detailed statute.
He brought notes.
He did.
I had a feeling you were going to be asking about it. So the legislature gave certain rights, and we can just kind of go through them quickly, and this isn't a full laundry list. Let me see if we can... Lots of definitions. Okay. So that they have the right to appear by telephone or an expedited hearing.
You could appear by phone?
Yes.
Really?
That they allowed for testimony by affidavit or by telephone, video conferencing. They even reference the internet, so I'm not sure if they're referring to webcams, but that's a possibility. That if the court enters an order dealing with custody while someone's deployed, it's a temporary order, that deployment cannot be used as a permanent basis for modifying custody. The legislature also allowed that the service member can assign their custodial time to a relative if that's in the child's best interest.
Really? Wow. I didn't even know that. But do you have the plaintiff prove that the husband, or doesn't have to be the husband, that the respondent is on orders overseas or here stateside? Because I've been in court a lot, and I know a lot of plaintiffs come before a judge and they make accusations saying that the respondent is here and just not paying child support, or the respondent is here and I want to take the child to a better job, let's say Chicago. How do you handle that?
Okay, well, one of the things you have to determine is, was the respondent properly served? Did they have notice of what's going on? Because without notice, we're not going anywhere.
Okay.
And that's a constitutional protection that every litigant has. If they're going on a default proceeding, one of the things that they have to swear under oath is that the person is not a member of the armed services. Because we need to know whether the Service Member Protection Act is implicated or not. So
you have them do that?
Yes.
Okay. I got a hypothetical for you. Let's say the respondent was served with court action to appear before you, and has orders to leave, but never contacted the courts. But they were served. So the last piece of information you have is that they were served to come before you, but you didn't get that information about that they had orders and they left the country. How do you handle something like that? Do you want to find out why they're not in your courtroom, or?
Well, normally we ask the litigant, have you heard from the other side? And if they're playing games, we're only going to hear about it when the service member comes back and tries to undo the orders. And unfortunately, litigants and service members need to notify the court if the Service Member Protection Act applies so that we can properly protect their rights.
All right, I got one for you. Let's say mom and dad is divorced. Mom has a better job out of state. But dad's still here in Vegas, and he doesn't want to go follow mom wherever she goes. But mom wants to take the child. You're on.
Okay. Well, need more facts for your hypothetical. What's the current custodial arrangement?
Let's say it's 50-50.
Okay.
See, if you're going up against the judge here, you're done.
No, I'm not going up again. I just want to hear Judge Pollock's how he would handle something like that.
Well, the poll star is what's in the best interest of the child. So we need to figure out, is the child going to receive greater benefits by going with mom or staying here? In a joint custodial situation, obviously, it's in the best interest of the child, and actually in all cases, to have continuing and regular contact with both parents.
Right.
When the parents have decided to make that not possible, then we have to figure out which parent is going to be a better fit and better for the child long term. Okay. And then maximize the other parent's time to the extent that we can.
So you would be willing to prepare an order for mom or dad to take child out of the jurisdiction of Nevada,
if the evidence,
and leave the other parent here, not seeing the child at all.
You just added at all.
Man, maybe it's a long trip. Who's gonna pay that airline ticket?
Well, first we have to determine, based on the evidence provided, is it in the child's best interest to stay in Nevada or go to the new home? That's going to be the first step.
And on your checklist, how would you decide that? Do you have like a list of laundry list that you would say, okay, this is not best interest of the child, and how would you go about checking that off?
Well, again, you're going to be going through your 480 factors. There's lots of case law from our Supreme Court on what factors we need to consider.
Okay. All right. Well, Judge Pollock, thank you for our interrogation. We appreciate that. Anything you want to tell the listeners, and your contact information, if you want to.
Okay. Well, I want to wish the listeners a very happy, healthy, and safe holiday season and a happy new year. And thank you again for the opportunity to visit with you. I can be contacted through the 8th Judicial District Court. I'm in Department J.
Well, thank you so much, Judge Pollock. That's Judge Kenneth Pollock, who's the Clark County District Court Judge for Family Division. Merry Christmas to you, Judge, and Merry Christmas to all our listeners. And next week, we're going to have John Paul, Korean War vet. He's going to talk about Agent Orange, and Phil Davison, who's the author of The Dreamer. And yes, that is on New Year's Eve. Jim?
Ken, Judge Pollock, as always, it's a pleasure to see you, and I hope you have a great day tomorrow, okay?
And thank you. And Jim, my prayers go out to your mom and your family.
And Judge, did you bring gifts for us? It's Christmas. No gifts? Judge Pollock didn't bring us any presents. This is Steve Sanson, Jim Jones for Veterans of Politics. Until next week.
And it's time we stand